We speak about the Vedantic wisdom, and then we speak about the Indian philosophy. And I kind of feel there is this misunderstanding when parents come that we actually have Vedanta classes in a timetable, or we have Indian philosophy as a subject, but that's really not how it works.
Today, we're obviously tackling one of the most fascinating questions in modern education. Can we bridge ancient wisdom with contemporary learning?
Our behavior policy is really not about around being just suspending a kid. It talks about how can you move towards a good behavior or a socially acceptable behavior. Because suspending a child or giving them consequence is like as if it's a battle between a parent and a child in a school, right? But nobody really wins in this.
For me, education just isn't about grades or getting into good schools, and I've shared this before on the podcast as well. It's about really shaping who they are going to become at their core.
I mean, I know there is a group of parents who still really want that. You know, they come and they say, if I put my child into school, what are the chances he'll get into IIT? Academic rigor and having highly qualified teachers is very important for that. But it's all about the mindsets that a child is growing with, because the world that they are facing after 12th, we can't limit that today in 26.
As parents, we want it all for our kids. We feel like education is that golden ticket that's going to open up doors for them magically. We want them to succeed globally, but we never want them to lose touch with our roots. And we want them to be leaders, but we also want them to be kind, humble. And I think somewhere, as Asian and Indian parents, we've not forgotten what we hustled for, and we want our kids to hustle.
The motto of every child matters. So how far can a school go to say yes, every child matters?
Right.
How much can you do in 8 hours in school at the end of it?
The Gurukul system that India always had, right, which always focused on the holistic learning of a child.
But again, let's go back, years back. Swami Vivekananda, he had a very beautiful saying education is the manifestation of perfection already in man. You can read that statement again and again. And yet as schools, we get so stuck to timetables and assessments and the content that we forget that education, a big chunk of it is inner work. And what we do in that syllabus is actually the tip of the iceberg. You know?
What is a real school? Welcome to season 5 of the Kidsstoppress Podcast. I'm Mansi Zaveri, your host and a certified conscious parenting coach, the founder of Kidsstoppress.com, a platform trusted by over 20 million Indian families, and most importantly, a mom of 2 girls who always keep me way more grounded. For me, education just isn't about grades or getting into good schools, and I've shared this before on the podcast as well. It's about really shaping who they are going to become at their core and being that individual who knows how to navigate, regulate, guide themselves when the parent has actually stepped out of the room. As parents, we want it all for our kids. We feel like education is that golden ticket that's going to open up doors for them magically. We want them to succeed globally, but we never want them to lose touch with our roots. And we want them to be leaders, but we also want them to be kind, humble. And I think somewhere, as Asian and Indian parents, we've not forgotten what we hustled for, and we want our kids to hustle. Today, we're obviously tackling one of the most fascinating questions in modern education. Can we bridge ancient wisdom with contemporary learning? What happens when we combine the time-tested Gurukul system, India's traditional method of holistic education, with the globally recognized international curriculums that represent itself? Today, we're talking to someone who is deeply passionate about education. Her father was the founder president of VKE, which is Victoria's Kids Educares, and was a decorated wing commander in the Indian Air Force. He founded the school to blend Vedantic philosophy with the Western science of the International Baccalaureate, the IB curriculum. The school focuses on philosophy of learning, to love to learn, and how to learn, and not what to learn. And the belief that education is about unfolding that potential and not filling the gaps. That sits at the very core and the very heart of that school. So today we're going to be chatting with Ira Ghosh, who's the director of VKE and is also a mom to a 3-year-old, a progressive education expert, and a play advocate who has spent almost 17 years reimagining education by weaving together the personalized mentorship of the Gurukul tradition with the inquiry-based, internationally minded approach of the IB program. In today's conversation, we're going to be talking about why the ancient Gurukul method remains relevant even in the digital age, how the IB curriculum's emphasis on critical thinking complements traditional Indian educational values, the practical challenges, and obviously the remarkable success of creating this sort of hybrid model, and most importantly, how this integration could revolutionize education for children worldwide. So whether you're an educator, a parent, or simply someone who's deeply passionate about the future of learning, this conversation is going to be a game changer for you. Okay, Ira, are you nervous?
No.
You come from a family that's obviously deep rooted in education. Sir Robin Ghosh, he founded VKE, and your mom is leading it today. How was it growing up in an ecosystem that shaped your philosophy of how education should be, what it is today? How will it impact for generations to come? And of course, it's progressive. How did that form your foundations of education?
Actually, I didn't have the same kind of education, despite of my parent having a school that was very progressive since the 90s. Every time I was in primary school, they had an earlier center, and when I was so they didn't have the age group of schools that I was supposed to go to. So I'm not an IB student, neither did I go to a progressive school. In fact, I've been to 10 plus schools from K-12 around different countries,
Wow.
public and private. And I kind of had horrible experiences. So I think till I was about 18, I never wanted to be a teacher, neither I wanted to be involved with the school. I was an ESL student, so teachers didn't get me, and I felt like this is all a lie because I am having a horrible time back in school. I've had public, private, convent education system, all of it. Till I was about 18, I didn't want to be a teacher. Till I started interning in VKE, and I felt this is just a temporary internship. Then there was once, there were teachers not there, and there were like about 38, 40 kids in the same class. And my dad told the coordinator, just put Ira in the class. And I was like, okay, I'll just manage the kids. How hard can it be? Because teachers are strict and whatever it happens. It was so hard to manage those kids because the school was different.
Yeah.
The kids were not used to a very typical discipline. I really had to get them engaged. And there was this one boy that I still speak to him. He's like a professional now. This was 18 years ago. His name is Rudra. I still meet him. He gave me such a tough time. Like I really had to be someone to be able to manage that class. And by the end of the day, I realized this is good. This is not what teachers did to me. I am kind of good at this.
When you say you had a tough time being a student and this first 18 years were complicated, you did many different formats. What were your struggles as a student?
You know, in my 8th grade, I had moved to India. I was put in a school with 60 kids. And then I was really sharp in math back. But you don't even realize there are different ways of doing math in different countries unless you're in an international school.
Yeah.
So the way I would get the answers was very different from a way that you would get it typically, let's say a division.
Yeah.
So I would give the right answers and then the process would be different. And the teachers would keep giving me 0. And then I didn't even have the language to kind of discuss with the teachers. Neither there was a time for feedback or sitting one-to-one. I would just keep getting the papers and they would keep giving me 0s. And then they would say, no, you have done it the wrong way. Then I realized there is really a difference between how something is done somewhere else. And teachers don't have the time to even consider why your answer was correct. There were different ways of getting that. So for the longest, I kept getting 0 from teachers, even if my answer was correct, because they didn't have time to have a look
Do you
at
feel like that's fair?
what is fair. I mean, they had 60 kids, 8
No, do you think
divisions.
it's fair that sometimes when the steps in the method is not written,
It's not fair.
do you think kids struggle with this today?
It's changing, at least from where I come from and the kind of the profession
Yeah.
and the route that I have chosen. Every day we do stuff to make sure no one goes through this, but I can't say it doesn't exist anymore.
So then you moved in grade 8.
8, yeah, I wouldn't speak the language, and There's a funny story of my chemistry teacher who would keep calling me in front of the blackboard, and then she would ask me to write things, and I would not understand the instruction because I didn't have a great English.
Yeah.
She would throw chalks at me, and then to kind of, maybe that was the way of getting. So of course, that was one of the horrible experiences I would have. Teacher throwing chalk, that was like really strange to me. It so happened years later, when I became the associate coordinator at VKE, I was called saying that the main coordinator is missing. There is a teacher who's come for demo. Can you observe her class?
Yeah.
I went in grade 1. I had goosebumps. It was my chemistry teacher.
Tell me, what's the impact it has on a child when you're being thrown chalks at in class, you're being singled out, or you're being targeted for something, or getting that paper back home, 0 up, 0 off 0. Or even when a teacher knows that this child is not very good in a particular subject, you're called in front of the class and asked to write a report. What really goes on into a child's mind? Because you've experienced that firsthand, to be bullied. And I often say this on Kidsstoppress. Parents always feel like bullies are other kids or other adults. It's never a teacher.
I think in my case, it was different because when I would come back home, the narrative was very different, right? I remember my dad always said something, and he probably said it till his last days, that a teacher or a parent acting that way is crying from inside, saying, I don't know what to do with this situation. I don't have this strategy. I'm not empowered enough to know how to handle this student. So you give that teacher training, or you give them tools, or you give them time. So he kept telling me that, she's not a bad person. Or my mom kept telling me, this is just how the system operates. So it's really not about you. It's not about the system. It's about how they manage a group of 60 class. But I think it's really tough for kids who don't have the narrative back at home the way I had it.
Yeah.
It takes away an important chunk of time that you at that age could be spending around focusing on what are you good at and how can you manifest that in your future.
Yeah.
You're constantly trying to work around something that you're not good at.
Yeah.
And they say what you give attention to is what grows.
Yeah.
So imagine if at that age you're constantly giving attention to something that you're not good at, be it a language, be it a subject, or whatever. That becomes your weakness as you grow up.
Your work obviously sits at the intersection of education, philosophy, and your lived practices, right? Your experiences. What does that look like in real classrooms beyond the statements and the theory? How does that translate into the work that you do?
That's actually something I really like talking about, because we speak about the Vedantic wisdom and then we speak about the Indian philosophy. And I kind of feel there is this misunderstanding when parents come that we actually have Vedanta classes in a timetable, or we have Indian philosophy as a subject. But that's really not how it works. It's really in the DNA of the school, be it from our behavior policies actually influenced a lot by this. How do I break it down? So for example, in the Vedas, there's a lot of focus about you being coming from the same source that everyone else comes.
Yeah.
Being Brahma, right? The Aham Brahmasmi is that
Yeah.
we say, I am Brahma.
Yeah.
Which in the Western science, it translates into everyone having an infinite potential.
Yeah.
Right? So that's actually a strong part of education, because it's an inner work from a very young age. So our narrative, our language with the kids is that you set a goal, you manifest it, you work around it, and you can achieve it. And this even comes to the power of manifestation when you're in high grades and you want a specific marks. You start believing that's what you're going to get. Our behavior policy is really not about around being just suspending a kid. It talks about how can you move towards a good behavior or a socially acceptable behavior. Because suspending a child or giving them consequence is like as if it's a battle between a parent and a child in a school, right? But nobody really wins in this. If you prove that a child has misbehaved, school is also losing.
Yeah.
Because if a child sits at home, how is the behavior changing? In the younger ones, we say there is divine in you and there's a monkey in you. Both are there. You choose which one takes over. So sometimes the divine takes over. That's when you are doing a socially acceptable behavior or you're being kind. And sometimes you let the monkey take over. But your mind has the power of controlling the monkey. We start a day with meditation, mindfulness. We sing Gayatri Mantra every morning, which we believe is a universal mantra. We end the day with gratitude. It's really in those little fabrics of the school.
Right. Tell me, if you were to sum up VKE, or you have to explain anybody about it, and in like 2 sentences, what would it be?
I'll just go with the mottos of the school. 3 statements. Learning to love to learn. Our entire aim is to make sure the students continue to learn and love to learn. And there are a couple of examples like how we have the alumni to come back. They're 27-year-olds and they say how they are still pursuing learning. Every child matters is what we very proudly say. And the third one is, if a child who has not learned, it is us who has not taught. The school was started in 1997 by Sir Robin Ghosh, who was a wing commander at that time. He served in States. He had gone to the United States to train fighter pilots on Jaguar planes. He was one of the few who was selected from India to go there. And then when he went there, he realized there is something in the education of India that he has experienced that's missing, because he was exposed to the education and how people are learning back in the United States. He took an early retirement, somewhere around his late 50s, and he studied neuroscience and early child brain development. Came back to India, did a lot of research. He used to take a lot of parental trainings and school training, and then started the school. For an entire year, from 97 to 98, there was just teacher training and no students, because that time for parents to know a school has no board association, no typical campus of corridors. It was really hard. So an entire year, there were only teachers. He would just train teachers. Then the next year in 98, it started with just 6 kids. None of them were Indian.
Oh.
Because again, if in India, a concept of sending your kids to school without having a board was very alien.
Yeah.
From 6 kids, now it's 26. We're 900 plus students. School has been around for 30 years. The school did not have any board, no CBSE, ICSD, nothing, till about 2006. When he went to Australia, attended an ID conference, and he realized this is the boards that could allow the school's identity remained and yet give it some structure. So since then, it's been just a pure ID school, around for more than 15 years in each of the programs. That's primary, middle years, and diploma.
Simi, how are parents choosing on schools today versus way back in 97 or 2007? How has it transitioned every decade?
Right now, there is so much of information out there, so many schools opening. So I think there is a bit of optics that plays an important role. What happens? Parents feel they're not wrong, but they feel a new campus, more facilities, XYZ room, that somehow takes away what a real school is. You know,
What is a real school?
I think that's it. A real school is probably its mission, its foundational statement. And how does that translate in the classroom?
But is a real school the one for parents that just brings results? Are we getting very transactional as parents when it comes to education?
No, I mean, I know there is a group of parents who still really want that. You know, they come and they say, if I put my child into school, what are the chances he'll get into IIT? What is the examination preparation
So it's
for
become
that?
like schools have become stepping stones into whichever degree or higher education your child actually wants to pursue. So I see this constant inflow of in place. We're deciding which play school basis, which big school we want to go, which big school basis, whether my child wants to go abroad or he wants to go into IIT or he wants to take the medicine or whatever, right? So it's become at every stage, it's about the next step. It's never about the right step.
Absolutely. And that becomes so limiting, because if you're choosing school expecting with a specific outcome that you've been going here because you have to get into this school and you have to give this examination, then you're limiting all the possibilities that a child could explore.
Then our parents are thinking, I'm just increasing the probability.
Yes. How can we? I mean, it's 26. There are students at our alumni who are coming and talking about professions that we probably didn't know 20 years back they were going to pursue. And one of them in her testimonial, she said, I didn't know this job exists till about 8, 9. She's a speech pathologist in state. And she said, I didn't know this exists, but no one really pushed me to a specific streamlined education. So while I could explore the possibilities, that's how I came to know this is my strength lies in. Academic rigor has to stay around. I think there was a misunderstanding in between that academic rigor is not important, because everything is available online. Kids can study on YouTube.
Yeah.
No, I think academic rigor and having highly qualified teachers is very important for that. But it's all about the mindsets that a child is growing with, because the world that they are facing after 12th, we can't limit that today in 26.
VKE was always founded with with Vedanta and Eastern philosophy. What is Vedanta and Eastern philosophy, and how does it really translate, if you can explain to our viewers?
So, I'm not going to get into a very detailed session, but the Vedas, so what happened is Sir Ira Ghosh, when he started the school, somewhere in 2000s, he also got a lot into yoga and meditation. And then that's when he realized that everything that we are speaking through the Western science has already existed in our Gurukul or in our Vedas and Upanishads.
And how do you blend that with a curriculum like ID?
So ID is actually very flexible. It talks about the areas that the student can excel in, looking at their strengths. We have something called, not just IB, but in an international context, called feedback and feed forward, right? A feedback is making a statement about what was the work, but a feed forward is actually the most powerful tool for a teacher, because you talk to the students about what next. So if this is where you stand now, what is the feed forward that I'm going to give you? That what next can you do? So that's not limiting a child's potential. That's really talking about not what happened. It's not a feedback. It's a feed forward. How are we going to go ahead and achieve what you are able to achieve?
Right. Tell me, how do you build for something, or how do you teach something when you don't know what the future looks like?
There are a lot of skills that we talk about, actually. It's funny that we still call it 21st century skills, because it's kind of almost done, isn't it? So flexibility is one of the skills that we talk about. In an international baccalaureate, in IB context, there's a lot of the learner profile attributes. Sorry, the dispositions of a school, the ATL skills. The ATL skills are actually something that you start teaching implicit and explicit to kids from the age of 3 till they are 18. And they just start really simple and they get a bit more complex. So the idea is that if a child is experiencing this kind of an education for these 3 programs from the age of 3 till 18, then they would hopefully have these skills to be able to navigate the future after that. Right. So let's have a look at metacognition. It comes somewhere around the age of 8, 9. And then they keep practicing and playing around with that skill till they are in 12th grade. So, yeah.
With a school that's been around for so long, what's the kind of legacy that's built and is harder for newer schools to to build, like it's harder for them to build without that experience.
But something that VK has really held for the last 3 decades is consistency into what it believes.
Right.
For example, it's really hard for a school to take in students from different backgrounds,
Right.
different accessibilities, different families. But believing that back in the classroom, the magic is possible for every student, it's something that we've stayed around. Because if you look at a bigger picture, how do you do justice to 20 kids with 2 teachers in a classroom and respect each one of their learning phase? How much can you do in 8 hours in school at the end of it?
Yeah.
Are the parents on board with the school? So we do have a lot of systems in place. We get an undertaking from the parents and say that, you know what, we can transform this child, but we can't do it alone. So during the admission, there are a lot of cases that parents come and say, my child has not been doing X, Y, Z. And we say, we do have a system in place to help your child, but we need to come to an agreement that the school cannot do this alone. You need to come and be with us. We will help you about your parenting and the way you deal with the kid back at home. So together, it's all are important. The environment, the parents, the teacher, the exposure. If everything is monitored, then your child, of course, will be able to achieve.
Right.
a better.
Are we expecting too much from schools without the parents' hand in it? Or do schools really want parents to be involved?
So we do want parents to be involved. We want the parents to be involved even in designing a curriculum. So in our primary years program, once a month, we invite the parents either virtually or in person to come to school. They come and the teacher unpacks the lesson plan. And then she says, this is what I'm going to do. This is what we are inquiring into. This is what my assessment looks like. And parents actually get to co-construct this learning with the teacher. So it's much more engaging than just sending them a newsletter and saying, this is what your child is going to do, versus even if those 12 parents have been a part of curriculum designing, they are the advocates for the rest of the parents. That why is this happening this way? I was a part of that meeting and I co-constructed with the teacher about how they're going to inquire into migration.
Tell me, when your father started the school, he was obviously from the Air Force and he had that rigor, that discipline. Which part of his training reflects back into the school's philosophies?
I think he spoke, and the school stands a lot on the internal discipline. He always used to give an example saying, the traffic lights in India, if there's a police officer standing there, traffic police, everybody follows. The moment, and this is what he would tell the parents all the time, if you remove him, you'll have so many people crossing the red light.
Yeah.
That is not the kind of discipline we want for our kids.
Yeah.
Don't have monitor system.
Yeah.
We have action leaders that is elected by the kids. They decide what are those challenges that they're going to deal with that academic year. So we don't impose. We have language leaders, eco-avengers, and so every time they get elected, the students do a study of the school and they come and tell the principal, we want to address this. Some of them will talk about food waste, or some of them will talk about switching off lights, but the students present what they want to do.
Right.
And that doesn't get imposed to the next batch of students.
The next batch will rehash something for them.
Yes, because each one of them bring a voice.
Yeah.
So we don't check them. We kind of ask them, what is the outcome? You've been an action leader. So after 6 months, you let us know what is the outcome.
Are we expecting, is this then a school for self-starters or kids who are highly motivated or have a very strong sense of discipline? And the ones that don't have it will sort of be always the ones who never want to be in the spotlight and will be in their comfort zone.
There's space for all. When we have kids transitioning from boards or from schools and coming here, we usually hear from parents saying that we've seen a side of our kid that we've never seen before.
Yeah.
And mostly in the first 1 year, it looks across as if it's a stubborn side of a child, or, but that's actually the child trying to stand up for himself.
Yeah.
What is it that we're looking at as kids? To follow a discipline, follow a structure. Values are very important, but children having a mind of their own is equally important. So when they come to VK, suddenly the parents see a very different version of a child. That a child can say no. It's okay to say no, but it's about saying it respectfully. No,
Yeah.
you know, it's okay to have a mind of your own. So the first 1 year, we do a lot of parent training, talking with parents, having counselors for them. Because sometimes it's really strange for parents to be able to have that transition in their parenting journey as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Tell me, what are, I mean, with education changing at such a fast pace, how do you keep your teachers updated with what's happening and how education is evolving? Because it's getting obsolete as we speak.
I know. You know, the research says that any good international school spends about 60% of its income for either teacher salary or teacher development.
Wow.
And that's something that's not really easy for a lot of educational institutes to make peace with. So what we do in VK, you know, we speak a lot about differentiation in the classroom for students. We say students have different levels of learning, different ways of learning. No one is keeping in mind that teachers are humans too,
Yes.
right? So we have instructional coaches, which are one-to-one coaches helping a teacher
Yeah.
for 2 to 3 months to excel at an area that they have chosen.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, we have a whole school training. We have micro professional development. We have one-to-one sitting with the coordinator. We have surveys. It's just like how it works in the classroom with the
Yeah.
teachers. We do the same thing. What is it that you really need to improve on your classroom right now? We sit together, we observe. We have learning walks, which the core team does.
Right.
It's about 13 of us, which are the coordinators. So we constantly go around, have a look at this floor, that floor, take down notes. Is it the classroom management that this classroom needs? Is it the inquiry in the classroom? So we are constantly making plans of what next for the teachers, and we categorize them into, you go to room 1 for this training, you go to room 2 for this training. Is it the one-to-one training you need? Is it an international training that you need, in-house you need? So there's an entire bigger system that works for teacher training. One size does not fit all.
Right.
All teachers do not.
And I think
operate the
that
same.
sort of lends you to have so much diversity in your school and space for inclusion. Tell me some of the strangest things that parents have come to you with, like what are the kind of requests that they have, like my child's not getting these grades, or is it about hitting, pushing? What are some of the strangest requests that you got as a leader?
To do 2 boards at the same time with a child, that's the first thing that came.
Really?
We actually had a parent whose child was doing the entire IB, and then she also was doing the IGCSE at home.
Why?
She had sourced, I think somewhere down the line, she knew this is the board she wants for her kids, but everyone in her circle was still doing a different board, which was more conventional. So she still wasn't sure if this or
So that implies that our confusion as parents leads to, leads to decision fatigue in many ways.
It came from the child.
Yeah.
He actually said he was not submitting his learning continuation, which we call for homeworks. And when we sat with him and he said, I have to study and I have to go. And we said, why do you have to do that? Because everything gets done in the school hours itself. He said, no, I have different teachers and different textbooks at home. And he was in primary school, grade 3 and 4. When we called the mom, she said, yeah, actually, he's also doing a different school curriculum after this school.
Wow.
That was fatigue for the child.
Yeah. What are some of the misconceptions that parents carry about what is good education?
I think it's different. But as we spoke about in the beginning, I think a concept of a building, how it looks like, how education is supposed to look like because of social media and a lot of videos and pictures being out there. I think as parents, they look for, we've had parents who come and the first question they ask is, are you centralized AC? The first question. So then I had to ask them, is that the first thing that matters to you when it comes to a school? Then we can carry forward the conversation, because I know what matters to you.
Yeah.
How it looks like. Also, I think placement. At the end of the day, the kind of university placements that
Yeah.
happens at the end, that matters a lot to parents.
So they are treating that as a benchmark.
It is.
And then we wonder why some schools just ace it and get it, and the others may be following the foundations, the philosophy, the principles, but may still not be yielding the same kind of results.
Yes.
Does that matter?
I would say overall, holistically, it doesn't. But the question is, does it matter to a family? Because if it matters to you and you still choose a school that is doing work towards that and still more about character building, then there is this constant internal conflict you'll have as a parent. If that's the ultimate goal you're looking at, if you really want a certain placement of university for your child, but you've chosen a school that does a lot of character development as well. So there is this constant conflict. If it's a balance of both, then I think it's fine.
For parents who've not fully understood what is the IB curriculum, what would you say to that? Like, how would you explain it?
It's not a curriculum, it's a framework. I think one thing in language which we really try and change out there is IB is not a curriculum, it's a framework.
Right.
This, unlike the other boards, it gives you what needs to be done in every subject. IB gives you a skeleton that you very much need to put in the curriculum as a school. So a primary year's IB school in India versus Australia or Canada or New Zealand or Thailand can be very different in terms of the curriculum contents that's there. Like we take in the CBSE content and we put it inside the skeleton, which is a beautiful content on its own. I think parents think IB is a curriculum, first misunderstanding. Second, that it's just meant for going outside. It does help you a lot to go outside India. But there are a lot of students that we have right now who have done IB education and they've joined their family business.
Yeah.
Or they've just started their own business, or they've remained in the same city, or they've joined an Indian engineering college. IB is really not about just profession, but it's about that whole person that you become.
And I think the Indian parent has somewhere started assuming that IB is a stepping stone to getting into university abroad.
It is, but that's not it.
Yeah.
So the universities abroad do look at IB as something strong in a student's CV.
Yeah.
Because the way that a diploma program 11 and 12 that happens, look at the essays that they are writing, the community project, their CVs are of course way more powerful than a non-IB student CV. But again, that's not it. Like we have a student who did her entire IB with us, and one of her community project in 12th standard was around biodiversity. She's very much in India working with the government of Maharashtra.
Lovely.
Setting curriculums for schools that will go as a part of NEP to work with children at the grassroots level. She didn't have to go outside the country. She's in fact staying back and utilizing her 11th and 12th community service to contribute something back to the community itself.
Interesting. We're also talking about IB being a program that develops global citizens. What does that actually look like in a classroom setting?
So right at the center of the IB curriculum is the learner and talks about learner profile. An IB learner's profile is shaped by 10 attributes of the learner profile. So these are risk takers, communicator, principled, thinker, caring. Each one of them is actually very consciously integrated in everything that the teachers plan to teach or the experiences that the students have. And I think that's something that keeps IB a little apart. That the values and the dispositions are, you're consciously designing for it, even in a normal math or science classroom.
Right.
So, and then what we believe is any student, any person who's developed these 10 attributes becomes an internationally minded person.
You know, we've always had the Gurukul system in India as a benchmark to look forward to as a global umbrella, right? Do you guys borrow anything from it?
So I'd like to actually invite a perspective here. If you really look back at Gurukul's system, it was like a residential school, right? The Shishya, the student, would go at Guru's place and stay. And the Gurus taught a variety of subjects.
Yeah.
So it was about the worship or philosophy or politics. Of course, there was reading, writing, astronomy, whatever they had to do, because they had to prepare the students for a certain position that they had to give it. Now, I don't think typical Gurukul example exists today. But what is it that you borrow here is that thousands of years back, there was a one-to-one mentorship, the Guru and the student. Second thing, there was immense respect from the disciple to Guru. Third, there was relevant studies being done, what was required for that era. And which was holistic. It was not just literacy and numeracy that we spoke about. Even then in the Gurukul system, there was a lot of studies around philosophy of life, self-management, the meditation, the spirituality, all the subjects that were relevant for a character to develop. So that's something that I believe a lot of schools today are actually taking influence from. We're talking about holistic education. Thousands of years back, there was holistic education. It was not just numeracy and literacy. So that's the kind of perspective I want to bring on table, that no, we don't have residential school, that there is a guru sitting under a tree, but what is a message that it's bringing in? There is someone who's there mentoring you through your life while you develop variety of subjects to become the best version of yourself.
That's so interesting. That's so beautifully said. And I think somewhere as parents, educators, and the whole system has become so transactional that it's okay, how many marks did you get? Like that just becomes the end goal without realizing, what has this done to my child? Have I shaped my child's overall personality? And what are the trade-offs that I'm making in the attempt to make it, make him excel at one skill and not the other? And I think that is such an important question for parents to ask, that what is the trade-off? Because we have had, 2 or 3 students, and we've seen this in the news, right? Like they've excelled all the way through academically, but they felt miserable about who they are as people today. And I feel like, what's the point, right? Or they've got all the accolades and they've decided it's still not worth it, and they've sort of ended their lives there, right? And these are all tender ages of 18, 21, 22, and I feel terrible about it. So I think that whole bridge that you've built, which is so amazing to say that back in the day in the Gurukul system, we always believed in that holistic development versus, somewhere along the lines, it just got very transactional with just marks, numbers, grades. And I think what we're also doing is somewhere schools are becoming, in my mind, just a stepping stone to, and I don't blame parents for it, because as millennials, we've grown up to understanding and believing that the only way to improve our current condition is with a golden ticket of education. Education will transform our economic status, and that made us, be so limited and myopic in thinking like that. So I think along the lines, we lost the concept of, is my child developing holistically or not? Which I thought was such an important aspect of what
I think I also want to again invite reflecting on what is education. The golden ticket is education, and I kind of do agree with that. But again, let's go back years back. Swami Vivekananda, he had a very beautiful saying education is the manifestation of perfection already in man. You can read that statement again and again.
That's true.
And yet as schools, we get so stuck to timetables and assessments and the content that we forget that education, a big chunk of it is inner work. And what we do in that syllabus is actually the tip of the iceberg. There is a lot more that we need to untap from the students.
Then when we're looking at schools like VKE, do they believe in competition? And how do you foster collaboration over competition?
Collaboration over competition, very important. But in our dispositions, we also have things like FLY, fearlessness, fortitude, the positive side of fighting skills, that is somehow preparing them for the worlds that they are facing or even today. So competition is not necessarily something negative. What happens post the competition, the attitude that you have post the competition, that requires more work than that just 20, 30 minutes of competition.
Right.
So it's okay to compete if it's structured, it's about a sport. In sports, great. This is how best you learn resilience, right? Even if it's about something else. But the attitude that a person who wins or doesn't win post the competition has, that is the bigger chunk of work that we need to do as adults than just putting them in a scenario of competition.
Yeah, to me, school and sports day just means, most teachers is grabbing kids who come 1, 2, 3. Like, I hate that side. It like really irritates me because you're just making the others feel like they didn't do a good job. Versus I feel like the child who works the hardest is the one who's actually lagging behind, because for him to build that self-esteem and say, I'm good enough in spite of, everybody, when all eyes are looking at you and you need to pull up yourself and say, okay, I can do this. I feel like that child is really working possibly the hardest. And when you come last in a race, to just have the ability to finish that race is most important. In my
What is
opinion.
it that I do after sports day? And I didn't realize it matters unless this sports day, when a parent wrote an email about it. I make sure, and that was just something that I would just go naturally and do it. I would go and shake hand with the house that didn't make it.
No.
And that's something you want to go and tell them that you still matter. It's just a house.
Today was just not your day.
Today was just not your day in terms of getting a trophy, but we still see you.
Yeah.
So by instinct, I would always walk to the side that the house that didn't make it, and then we would take a group picture there first, and then shake hands, and then say, good job, and you did your best. There was a parent who wrote an email saying, I saw my daughter almost in tears when the announcement was made, and I could see this from the audience. But when Ira ma'am walked there, I knew I don't have to deal with a lot of drama when we get back home, because someone still from the management went and congratulated them.
Yeah.
I think we need to be mindful of that more.
Yeah. Ira, thank you for being so, thank you, one, for facilitating this process of VKE, because I think what your dad started, what you are continuing, and what will continue is so beautiful, because it comes from a very innate need of a child wanting to be seen and not picked on. And they're two different things, to be seen, to be heard versus to be picked on. I think you beautifully addressed that in your journey. And I think VKE highlights that so beautifully. So thank you for sharing that philosophy. I love the idea of the Gurukul system where you actually mentioned on how it was always within us to have that global and holistic learning, and we somewhere lost significance to that. We forgot that we already had a path to that. And modern day schools just need to emulate that better. So thank you. Thanks so much for sharing that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mansi.
For parenting tips, celebrity interviews, recipes, conversations with experts, DIYs, and lots more. Subscribe to Kidsstoppress now.